Esta conferencia comenzará a grabarse.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Ula. Welcome everybody.
I'm there from you.
So, as we are going to be a lot of people, please, I would like to ask you to close your microphone, put your microphone off if you are not going to speak. Thank you.
La tendència dels jutges ha de parar.
So, welcome to this session of the morning dialogues in the European Alliance Against Coronavirus. Today we have a very, very special topic, list of speakers. Thanks to all of you, all of them, for joining us and make this reflection about the future of our European Union and how to go towards a green and collaborative European recovery. As there are a lot of things to share today, I will pass the word without more delay to Ula Engelmann, Head of Unit in the DG Grow. Welcome, Ula. Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Do you want to take the control of the screen, or should I share your presentation?
If you could share my presentation, I would prefer.
Perfect. I'll do that. Just one moment. Now. The floor is yours, Ula.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody. We are very pleased to be able to discuss today in this meeting together toward a green European recovery. And in the next slide, I'm just now here in my introduction setting a bit the scene on what we are basing ourselves. So in March, just at the beginning of the crisis, the EU industrial strategy has been published. And as it has been published, it had three big dimensions: green transition, global competitiveness, and digital transformation. And this was based on different elements which are part of this industrial strategy. Like one important item is skilling and reskilling, but also embedding innovation, building in more circular economy, looking to support industry towards climate neutrality, and of course looking to have a level playing field globally, and as well as deepening our single market. So this industrial strategy, of course, stands because it was the latest document published towards industrial strategy. And in the next slide, you see how this has now also been taken into account and updated for the recovery package, because the Commission has published a recovery package towards the end of May. And in this recovery package, there is a very big element which is called Next Generation EU. And in this element, in this instrument, Next Generation EU, you see it will be rolled out under three pillars. And the three pillars are investing in a green, digital, and resilient Europe. So if you compare this to the industrial strategy, the notion of resilience has been joined. So green and digital were already before. Of course, now they have become even stronger. And these 3 guiding principles, then you see how we support member states to recover, kickstarting the economy and helping private investment, but also learning lessons from the crisis. I'm not going into detail because you find a list of the different instruments, and this can be maybe another webinar in its own, but just to give you an idea on the different elements which have been proposed, and they are only in proposal phase because they still need to be agreed with the European Council. Additionally, to help for the recovery, 14 industrial ecosystems have been identified, and these industrial ecosystems have undergone an analysis, also like a health check, what happened to them, what were the impacts, and you see the list of the 14 ecosystems at the slide, which is now gone, I think.
Yes, sorry, just one moment. A little mistake.
In order not to lose time, I will continue. Anyways, the slides will be available afterwards. Then you can look at the 14 ecosystems. But how, with clusters, can we implement the European Green Deal? And that's why we have looked and we have seen we have 250 industry clusters operating in environmental technologies, and several of them hosting very world-leading firms. This information we have from our European Cluster Collaboration Platform, but we also have identified 400 industry clusters operating in digital technologies. So we need to bring this together. We need to see how we can get them also to work together to help to implement the greening and also digitalization of European industry. And then knowing or having this information, we want to use it better. And in the last slide, you see that we want to bring the knowledge of these clusters together with what we also have, which is called EREC, European Resource Efficiency Knowledge Center, which is a network of different bodies, but mainly European and environmental agencies. And we think that's why we want to bring them all under the new European Cluster Collaboration Platform, which is coming out very soon. And we want to really have this cross-fertilization between what the clusters are doing, between what our EREC members are doing, in order to spread more the greening. So bringing the different elements together, allowing for knowledge sharing, allowing for exchanging best practices, we think this is the most added value. And later on, our service contract will also inform you then how this is going to happen. So we are looking very much forward to use this new tool, but also to use your knowledge of the different clusters in the field for greening, for the recovery, and new mechanisms will also be for this made available if approved in the new multi-annual financial framework. So with this, that gives you a bit of frame of our thinking, and now we have a lot of different presentations which will go in more detail. Thank you very much.
You are very, very welcome, Ulla. Thank you. And now we jump to Ismo Ulvila from the DG Clima. Ismo, are you there? Can you speak, Ismo?
Antonio, can you hear me? This is Eva Revilla.
Yes, Eva. Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Antonio. Yes, my colleague is telling me he's having some problems to connect. Maybe we leave him a little bit more time. We are trying to solve this issue. If you don't mind, maybe we move to the next speaker.
Ocean.
And then, Ocean, yes. We will make the presentation of the European Green Deal a bit later.
Perfect, perfect. Ocean, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Welcome, welcome. Good morning, Ocean. So I will show your presentation immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Just one moment. Yeah, here it is. I think. Okay, thank you, Ocean. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. It's actually a nice transition since Mila just mentioned EREC. I will give a more detail on this initiative that we manage at GROW F2. So what is the European Resource Efficiency Knowledge Center Network now? It's under the European Cluster Collaboration Platform already. And as Ula said, it's a network, first of all. So first slide, please. Can you switch to the next slide, please?
Yes, for sure.
Thank you. So it's a, as we have said already, it's a network. So you have here the logos of the environmental and local agencies and national agencies that already provides support to companies to become more resource efficient and to go circular. And now this network has been enlarged with the clusters. So there's 250 green tech clusters that are registered under the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, but also, as Ula mentioned, all the other clusters that are part of the this green transition, and that will merge under this network. But EREC is also a knowledge-based. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. Oh, so that is the knowledge base of EREC. So we have a current database under the resourceefficiency.eu website, which is quite extensive. It covers 11 sectors of the industry. So it goes from tourism, manufacturing, construction, textile. And for each of these sectors, companies all across Europe, thanks to the EREC network, the members of the network, have provided good practices, measures, and green technologies that can be implemented at a company level to become more resource efficient, for these companies to become more resource efficient or circular, or to go circular. So we have these good practices, measures, and technologies allows the company to save. We identified 5 resources: water, carbon, materials, waste, and energy. And these items, good practices, measures, and technologies, also feature the investment costs. So it's quite a lot of data that we have under the knowledge base. And we also have what we call the support programs, so about 400 of them now, that are programs either at national or local level that allows, gives support to SMEs to invest in these measures, technologies, and good practices. I will not be too long on the knowledge base because, as you will see during this morning, we have a presentation of the Joint Research Center, but also of the ECCP. This knowledge base is going to be revamped. The whole structure is going to be revamped and is going to be validated by the Joint Research Centers with more data coming, consolidated with the links with other consolidated database, with the green best community practices. We will have more case studies, and we will also count on the EREC network members to keep feeding the database, notably on clusters, to, if they provide some, they want, they can provide some green technology on the database. The payback time of these good practices will also be calculated, and it's all based on the involvement of the GRC that will be that is with us this morning as well. So next slide, please. So EREC is also events and workshops that are, we had about 9 workshops so far, so from 2017 to now, with different focus, either sectoral focus, for example, a workshop on resource efficiency in the tourism sector, also on some connected issues such as industrial symbiosis. We had a session at the last European Cluster Conference in 2019 on Circular Europe. We had other workshops that were even more focused on festivals, for example, music festivals, and how they can be resource efficient as well. And we had last year in September our large high-level international conference in Brussels that has gathered more than 250 participants with high-level speakers such as Janet Potocznik, that brought together the EREC network members, but also the industry and civil society bodies, but all actors that are working towards the green transition of the industry. And last slide, please. But EREC is also reports, studies, and interviews that were made under this project. We have, for example, one report that has brought the view of the industry cluster managers, but also all the regional policymakers, and how we can implement circular economy in Europe. We had interviews of the industries, of other cluster managers. We had focus on social economy and resource efficiencies as well. So please don't hesitate to go on the website of EREC, which will soon be available under the ECCP, as EREC session of the ECCP. And the last slide.
Isto para mim está muito difícil.
The last slide, you can also follow EREC on the
Pois
social
não,
media.
mas é que eu entro e saio. É uma coisa esquisitíssima.
And just, I have added the link of EREC and on the ECCP.
Pois é.
So that's it, thank you. And if you have more questions, and we are very much looking forward to working with the enlarged community of EREC, the clusters, but all the environmental agencies, the chambers of commerce.
Eu também tenho isso.
Network. And thank you very much. So if you have any question, please don't hesitate to email me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ocean. There is somebody with the microphone activated that should not be activated. Please deactivate your microphone if you are not going to speak, please. Okay, thank you very much, Ocean. We are first trying to see if Ismo is there. Ismo, have you been able to connect? Are you there?
Antonio, it seems that there are still some problems. Maybe we'll leave the presentations for the European Green Deal at the very end of today.
Okay,
yeah?
No problem.
And we continue with the rest of the speakers because we have very good presentations. So
okay, thank you. So
we'll give him a bit of time. So.
Yeah, I will show you the schedule for today. Okay, so now the turn is for two examples on how to support companies to be green and competitive after the COVID-19 crisis, experiences and proposals from EREC members. So, Ander, are you there? Gunon, Ander?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello.
If you want.
So, welcome. Yes. I'm going to share your presentation now. Just one moment.
Yeah. Yo mismo? Well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the floor is yours, Anders. Ander?
Okay. Yes. You listen to me?
Yes. We are hearing you.
Okay. I begin. Okay. Hi. I'm Ander Elgurriaga of Joven. It's the Conservation Agency of the Basque Government.
It's a little far, the sound. Could you, I don't know, try to be near the microphone?
Okay.
We are not hearing you now, Ander. Ander? We are not hearing you. We have lost your voice, Ander. Ander? We cannot hear you suddenly. I see your microphone activated, but you are not. We are not hearing you. Could you try to disconnect and reconnect? Try now, please. Ander? Can you speak now, Ander? Is somebody with...
Sorry, back.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah?
I'm back.
Who is...
You listen to me? It's fine.
Sorry?
So, you listen?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, fine. I begin again. Sorry, it was a connection problem. So I'm Andrea Gurriaga of the Basque Government Agency. We are working 25 years supporting companies in resource efficiency and circular economy in industry. So I want to tell you how we will try to face the uncertain post-COVID-19 times also, and I hope to deliver you some ideas. Next, please. So next slide. Okay. First of all, let's see where I come from. The Basque Country is a small region in Spain of 2 million inhabitants. This means we know each other. We have, by the way, Europe's highest density of Michelin star restaurants. Our industrial activity accounts for 24% of the GDP. Many people don't realize that we have full tax autonomy. Therefore, we manage our own money. Next one. To connect this back to my previous slide, I like to tell you that we are a unique agency because we combine an intensive activity in economic policy instruments, design and implementation with knowledge development and transfer to our industry. Also relevant is a continuous estimation and measurement of the impact of our activity. You and me will have to work cost effectively and to adapt ourselves continuously to new challenges. In the next slides, I want to show you 2 results we got, to tell you how we got them, and finally to share with you our learnings. I want to emphasize that all results we have got are direct consequence of the strategic analysis we did about the last 2010 crisis. Now we are harvesting the fruits. So the slide presents our first results. Together with the Basque Competitiveness Institute Orchestra, we analyzed the green turnover development of 30 leading Basque companies collaborating with IOBE. By 2020, we expect that eco-designed products account for more than 7,000 million euros per year. This means an increase greening the global turnover from 28 to 46% in only 5 years. Next slide. I will tell you a story that contributed definitively to these results. It was 2011, just in hard crisis time. It was impossible to guide any SME to life cycle thinking. So we decided to call several Basque multinationals that should be greener to make more profit. For instance, Iberdrola Energy Services, Siemens Gamesa windmill manufacturer, Eroski retailer, or CA Automotive Tier 1. We did projects, build up their skills, and evaluate green business opportunities, and began slowly to green the supply chain. Because eco-designed products need green suppliers, the best driver for SMEs. Next one. In this slide, I show you 4 learnings I want to share with you. Firstly, it was surprising how limited was the knowledge about green policy drivers, competitors, and green markets, even in relevant multinationals. Secondly, life cycle thinking pays off. Right decisions are now taken. For instance, Iberdrola's commitment to green energy market has increased relevantly its market value. Our third learning is that proactive greening of supply chain is slower than expected. Open dialogue to green suppliers is a hard task. Commanding as usual is still the usual way to do. At least commands are now greener. At last, there is a high cost effectiveness of greening products and services. For each euro IOBE as public agencies spent on it once, a turnover of 181 private euros is expected. Next one. It's time to present the second result. We expect to reduce 0.35 million year of greenhouse gases emissions and increase yearly 85 million euros of green turnover. Highly positive figures. Even more if I enlarge this with other results as 230 new jobs, material sales, unit cost reductions, or a dozen of new economic business. Next one. The way to achieve these results hasn't been easy. Our circular economy innovation program supports every year about 35 new innovation projects with very limited budgets of 30,000 to 100,000 euros per project. 130 green products and materials projects have been supported with more than 5 million euros. We tried the money not to be the real program value. IOBE's strategic assessment, networking, demand creation, business model support, or administrative procedures acceleration are many times more relevant for success than money. And we got also a good cost effectiveness of public budgets. Its public euro induces 21 private euros yearly turnover. Next. I want to share with you the learnings of this second instrument. Firstly, business models and commercial viability needed to be improved in all projects, taking account from the beginning. Secondly, subsidies are only a hook. Additional support close to business is even more relevant for companies. Thirdly, monitorize expected impacts before, during, and after projects. It will increase your results and policy commitment. Last, innovative projects should answer to new demands created by policy instruments. So you will be in the right way. Now, please, the next three ones, show them away. Go fast, I will not take them. Go directly to the one with the virus. This one of the virus. Fine. It's time to stop. On March 14th, our 42 days COVID-19 lockdown began in Spain, just after EU's Green Deal was approved. I took my phone and called 2 dozens of experts. I spent time talking to academics, business leaders, specialized consultants, policy officers, business support organizations, clusters. I used to visit every week factories, so we trust each other. They tell me their regards. Investment stop, even for next year. Turnover radical reduction, mainly in automotive, aeronautics, and machinery sectors. But all messages have not been negative. They highly appreciated EU's financial implication. Most business learned in the last crisis that innovation was crucial to survive, even more if radical habit changing are expected, like just now. You will be familiar to the other inputs: time for digitalization, resource efficiency to be more competitive, lower risks by local supply chains, EU Green Deals, opportunities, and the relevance of public authorities. Next one. Based on these inputs, we are already acting now. We try to line up all actions with green drivers to create faster green market demand. We maintain resources for innovation, public support. We multiply by 3 the resources for the Green Rotates program to increase green employment. We take better in account digitalization. On one hand, we are preparing tax deductions for green digital investments, and on the other, we accelerate smart services to support SMEs using full potential of ATs. And finally, we are aware public budgets will be cut back. cost effectiveness of any activity is scoring highest. Next one. Nevertheless, we detected also 3 proposals. Next slide, yes. No, this is right. 3 proposals to be sent to the European Commission that could improve intermediate impact and increase cost effectiveness of green support to SMEs in Europe. First proposal is to explain better green policy drivers' implications for SMEs. Few businesses understand the real implications, losing so relevant opportunities and assuming high risks. Secondly, there are several national and regional economic instruments that would appreciate to have European Commissions lead clean technologies lists. Many intermediates spend too much resources, as we do, defining them. We would appreciate if JRC establishes best available techniques definitions for SMEs, ultimately also for digitalization. Finally, the third proposal. Excellent policy instruments already exist in Europe, but inspection and control is lacking. For example, green product requirements like ERP eco-design directives ones are the best market barriers to unfair competitors. Market surveillance should guarantee compliance. Many member states fail, and EU companies are struggling by not EU manufactured products. Last slide now. And following the invitation of the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, thank you, I want to give back my last recommendations to intermediates about how to green in a cost-effective way EU's SMEs. My advice can be summarized in these 5 points. First point, create green demand by explaining policy driver implications. When business understands real impact and opportunities of drivers, CEOs' decisions are taken to face the challenge. Second point, support business models development. Innovations have to be solved. Many companies fail just on it. I would also, as third point, point that it's time now for life cycle thinking. Now it will make a difference to survive or even to increase business, and not only for plastic products. Fourth point, green competitors are excellent market drivers for SMEs. Fast and easy to do a good analysis. And last but not least, ensure your cost effectiveness. Intermediates have always limited budgets and resources. Last one, I finished. So I hope our learnings will contribute to green your SMEs more cost effective. Our team and myself say thank you. In Basque, our 5,000 years old language, eskerrik asko.
Thank you, Ander, for your presentation. And we will share all the presentation and the video in the ECCP platform, so you will be able to find them there. Thank you again. And we will jump now to the next presentation. Let me close this one, if I can. Okay. That will be made by Henning Sittel from NRW. Are you there, Henning?
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Perfect. Welcome. Let me just open the presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Just one moment. Okay. So it's coming. Yes, here it is. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased that I can discuss and I'm with you and exchange our experience about resource efficiency projects in the last more than 20 years work in North Rhine-Westphalia. Please switch to the next slide, Antonio. First of all, I would like to give you a short overview about the region of North Rhine-Westphalia. It's located near central in Europe, and we have a population of 70.6 million people. So we are the biggest German state with the most population, and also called like the industrial heart of Germany, with many industrial producers and entrepreneurs. The next slide, please. And some information about the Effizienzagentur, the German, the efficiency agency in North Rhine-Westphalia. We are working for more than 20 years in North Rhine-Westphalia for the small and medium-sized companies. I'm still working there since 2001, maybe not 20 years, but 19 years. Next year I have my 20 years birthday, so I can say. Mainly for this slide is for you is important that we have one central location in Duisburg. It's close to the Rhine River. It's in the Ruhr area. It's very exchange of structural things in the last 30 years, and we are still live in these structural changes in this region. And also we have 8 regional offices in North Rhine-Westphalia. We have a bigger state, and we have the opportunity that we can stay very close to our companies in these different regions we have. And mainly that's interesting for you that we have done more than 3,500 resource efficiency projects, consulting projects with SMEs since 2000, and we are working with 30 employees. I'm a processing engineer, and we have different engineering competences in our agency. Please switch to the next slide. The range of our services is shortly in 3 parts. In 3 parts. As you can see, the know-how transfer, information, and networking is still one important part. The main part is the resource efficiency consulting, as I said it before, and we have also the financing consulting, or the finance consulting and funding consulting. In this area, we have done also more than 1,500 projects. So in a summary, we have around about 5,000 projects done in the last 20 years. With the main target of all these services to improve resource efficiency and competitiveness of the SMEs in North Rhine-Westphalia. Next slide, please. And we have also, many small and medium-sized enterprises. I said it, approximately 760,000 in some, and in industrial production, around about 12,000. These are the companies we are focused on. You can see the industrial sectors, but we can switch to the next slide. You also get our slides as a PDF at the end of the session, at the end of the webinar. Mainly for COVID-19 and these changes currently, we focused on many things, but we focus still more on, you can see it in this slide in the below, on the circular economy sector, thinking more in supply chains, thinking more in this supply chain management. And we have some tools. I will share with you 3 tools. Eco Cockpit is counting about CO2 emissions, a tool to support companies. Resource Efficiency 4.0, we called it in Germany. It's a digital transformation, and or the digitalization, as you would like to say, to focus on with resource efficiency things, also these digital changes and these possibilities to use sensoric and to use monitoring, controlling, and software and ERP systems, MES systems, and so on, these different software tools included in resource efficiency projects. And last but not least, eco-design is very important, not only today, it's the last 20 years important, but in the field of circular economy and these changes in the supply chain. You have focused more and more at the eco-design. Actually, we are in a German project with Federal Ministry of Education and Research. It's called Circular by Design, with some companies to think about the first step in eco-design and then think about the steps in the circular economy to get more resource efficient, to get more material efficient, and you get more recycling and to close the loop, I would like to say. Next slide, please. And some information before I get to my conclusion, I'll come to my conclusion. We have last year a technical report in North Westphalia, as you can see here on the main results. It's focused on the main KPI of CO2 emissions, and we have a look in the 5-year period from 2013 to 2018. And in this time, with our projects and our work in the companies in North Westphalia, we had a reduction approximately of 77,000 tons of CO2 emissions in North Westphalia. It's not a potential, it's a reality. We evaluate our projects, and though we know about the real in practice getting these results. And when you think about the project, there's a reduction of CO2 emissions about 213 tons, and per company or per entrepreneur 243 tons on CO2 emissions. This report still is only in German available, but when you have more information, or you want more information, or had the interest to get more information, you can write me an email and we can discuss it sure in English. And the last slide for my conclusion, please. I would like to conclude this short presentation about these things actually or currently focusing the COVID-19. It's still not new, but we think that, and we hear it and we discuss it with the companies at the moment. They didn't get any financing at the moment or investing. It's sure, it's right, but they think about different things. They think about their supply chains. They think about their suppliers, and they want to get more in discussion with their customers and so on. So it will change in terms of sustainability, some things, and we support these companies. And you can read these things by yourself. I don't have to read it from the slide. I think the main thing for me is that we have to get more in networking, to get more exchange, to exchange knowledge, as Eric is doing it the last years, and we have more work together about the current challenges in the supply chain management. And we still get some projects and create some projects at the moment, especially in the food sector, to think and to discuss in workshop sessions with companies all over from these different places in the supply chain. What have we do when we get more resource efficient and we get more possible aspects for a circular economy? So I get to my last slide and say thank you. My time is over, I think so. My time box is still over 10 minutes. Thank you for hearing me and thank you for seeing me. Here are my that's my time box. So here are my information and addresses. And if you want to get in contact, please don't hesitate and do this. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm still at the end.
You are very, very welcome, Anne. Thank you. We will for sure, we will for sure keep in contact with you. And I just want to take some seconds to invite you to our morning sessions every morning since 3 months ago. We are joining here in this same link to discuss about a lot of topics related to COVID, but also to green. We will continue doing that for some months, so you are all invited. Anyway, we are jumping now for the next presentation. Or I don't know, Eva, would you prefer to present now the Green Deal or later? Can you hear me, Eva?
Yes, I can hear you. Well, as DG Clima may not be able to connect at all, I will present the Green Deal. I'm just wondering, Antonio, if the rest of the speakers are lined up. Maybe it makes sense that now there is a maybe nice transition towards Casper, so we see the cluster approaches, if he's there, obviously. And
Okay.
then I can talk maybe after the JRC or ECCP and present the Green Deal.
Perfect. Thank you, Eva. Caspar, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome, Caspar. Perfect. I will show your presentation now. Okay. And thank you for joining us, Caspar.
Thank you
You
for
are
inviting me.
very, very welcome. See, okay, sorry, I am trying to here. Sorry, because sometimes PowerPoint doesn't want to make what I expect of him. I don't know why. It's some kind of mystery. Here it is. Thank you, Caspar.
Well, my name is Kasper. I'm head of development in Cluster Excellence Denmark, and I'm here to tell a little bit about the work we've been doing on clusters in the circular economy, and also about the work that we're gonna do on investigating how circular economy can help reignite the economy after the COVID-19 or during the COVID-19. Next slide, please. First, I'll just give a little bit of background about Cluster Excellence Denmark, that we're not a cluster organization, but we are very, very close to the Danish cluster organizations. Our role is to help the Danish clusters become better at running the clusters. And we've also been doing some support on the greening of clusters, of clusters in the circular economy. We're helping clusters finding funding. We're helping finding best practice around the world. We're matching with partners. And we've also been doing some very concrete tools on how to work with circular economy in clusters. And one of the things I'm going to tell a little bit about is a publication we did last year on clusters in the circular economy, and then I'm going to tell a little bit about how we're going to adjust this to the new situation. So the next slide, please. And one thing we found in the publication is that clusters are actually a key actor in helping the transformation of SMEs to much more circular economy, because a circular transition in an SME especially is resource demanding. It requires access to new capital. It requires access to new knowledge on how to change the production processes. It requires getting the right skills, both from outside designers redesigning the process, but also skills inside your company. And it also needs, when you make a circular economy, it can open the door to new markets. And what we found in this, we did a survey last year to 40 Danish clusters, and 2 out of 3 Danish clusters are actually working with circular transition in companies, also the clusters that are not green. And we found that clusters are actually helping the circular transition in companies in many ways. It's about finding new funding for it, it's finding money for it. Some clusters have a funding scheme where they can help the companies make the circular transition. They can help to get the right skills. It's both in the high end of a very advanced engineers coming to the companies making the transition, but it's also the more social parts where you actually take in some people on the edge of the labor market to help make the circular transition. It can be like within the renewable recycling, upscaling of furniture. You can take in some people on the edge of the labor market to help turn the products into new products. And the clusters are also helping open doors to new markets. It's both to the public sector, which is a really big driver in circular economy. There's been some initiative where Danish clusters have, together with municipalities, changed their purchasing processes. So they are looking for circular projects, circular products. And we also see that the clusters are playing a key role in bridging the gap between the knowledge that is already out there in knowledge institutions and in research institutions, but also in other companies, to bring them into SMEs so they can make the circular transition. And one thing that we see from this is that the SMEs are actually very much also interested in collaboration with larger companies when it comes to the circular transition. So if you come to the next slide. We also asked the cluster managers, what are the impacts on the SMEs with the work you're doing with the circular economy? And the biggest impact of all is that the SMEs get access to new processes. Circular economy is a lot about changing the processes within the companies. Like what do you do with the waste? Do you have a process to take the product after the consumer use it? And how do you change this product into a new product, or can you use it in your product line? It's about getting new competences, and it's about getting new knowledge. And it's to a lesser degree, it's actually new products. It's more changing existing products to a more circular way. The next one. And we also asked how are clusters actually helping making this circular transition? And it's about getting access to new knowledge. It's about building bridges between research, the knowledge that's already out there. It's some of them are very deep innovation projects where they work with the companies for about 2 years, starting with some training sessions where they train the companies. Then there's a seed capital where the companies get 10, 15, 20,000 euros to actually go and implement changes they want to do. And we also see that they make strategic partnerships where the SMEs are working together on changing the products, or they're working together with larger companies to change products, or they're working together with researchers. The next slide, please. And yeah, we did some case studies in the publication. I'll send you the link in the chat later on. And we see that this is cases from 7 European countries. It's from Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Netherlands, Poland, Latvia, and also I think six countries. From Denmark, we have Denmark has actually a national strategy on circular economy, and it was implemented 3 to 4 years ago. And we saw that the very first initiatives that was launched to make the circular transition was actually a Danish cluster. A couple of Danish clusters were appointed by the government to make the implementation, because the clusters have close access to the companies, but they also understand the policy level, so they know how to make it. We have another example of actually several clusters are working with access to circular funding to SMEs, where they're acting as they have like some kind of voucher system where they get where the SMEs can apply for funding. We see a Danish cluster is trying to make an equity fund where they actually have up to I'm calculating it from Danish kroners to euros here. It's about 40 million euros that they can help invest in the greening of SMEs. One thing we also saw that clusters are working a lot with the sustainable development goals. It's like the overarching the guideline on how to make a green transition of companies, and then the circular economy is a way to turn the sustainable development goals into concrete actions. And here we have a case with the Swedish cluster paper province, who is using the sustainable development goals as a guideline to turn the forest into a more sustainable business model. And if we go to the next slide. And then came COVID-19. Oh, go back. Yeah, and then came COVID-19, and we for a few days we just in Cluster Excellence Denmark we had a small blackout, because we thought, oh my God, all this work with innovation and circular economy, is this just going to stop now? Is everything going to disappear? And we were like, what's going to happen? And then if you take the next slide, Antonio. Before the COVID-19, we have done some very big analysis of the impact of clusters, and we have seen that clusters are 4 times more innovative than companies in clusters are more innovative and more productive. And we were thinking, is this going to go lost with the COVID-19? But after a couple of days, a couple of weeks, we start to hear from the Danish clusters that they're actually they're rethinking innovation. So they're doing it in a new way. So back in the old days, when you make matchmaking between circular economy actors, you would do it physically. but now suddenly everybody can do it online. We have heard of examples of Danish clusters doing investor pitching in the middle of the crisis, where they had investors from very big international companies participating in matchmaking sessions with Danish companies. We have heard knowledge bridging being built online. So it's if you go to the next slide, Antonio. What we hear is that the circular economy transition has not been cancelled, also not in SMEs. We hear that the companies are still interested in innovation. Some companies, SMEs, have postponed that circular transition. Others continue because they have a little bit more time now to change the processes. But one big conclusion is that it's not been cancelled. And we have also seen that some circular transition activities has gone global. I've heard just last week, Thursday, I talked with the lifestyle and design cluster from Denmark that had been making a deep knowledge webinar series about sustainable use of material in the clothing production, where they had, because of this COVID-19, some top researchers suddenly now have time to come and join webinars. Normally, if you would make an event, it can be a little bit complicated to attract top-level speakers, but it's because it was a 1 hour webinar, they could actually make this deep tech presentation about circular economy. They had, in these 4 webinars, they had 180 companies joining to listen about the nerdy knowledge about materials and how to reuse materials, which also proves that there's still a very high interest on circular transition and innovation. We take the next one. And some very good news from Denmark. Just this is actually not the slide, but this morning Denmark just launched a new climate ambition, or a new climate law that was approved or agreed between the parties in the parliament this morning. And one of the things is that the Danish tax system is going to be reformed. So we're going to have a tax reform where we're going to pay tax after the CO2 emissions of products and services. I don't know too much about it yet, but this is a really big thing in Denmark. It's been breaking news all over the meeting. And just the slides here is actually about last week that there's a national funding now for the green transition of Danish companies. 82 million Danish kroners. It's about 11-12 million euros right now out to be applied for intermediaries such as clusters, where they can have funding to make the circular transition in companies as a way to reignite after the COVID-19. I see that there's some questions about me in the chat. So will you take them after, Antonio, or should I try to address them during? How do we do it?
Yeah, we are a little short on time.
Okay, so I will answer in the chat after. I will take them in the chat after.
Please,
yeah.
Because yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you take the next slide. And in the next 2 months, I have a very we call it a quick and dirty project together with the Circular PP project, which is an Interreg project about circular transition of a public sector. And we agreed that we're going to do a little bit more investigation on how we hear a lot of political ambitions about making the greening of the Green Deal from the Commission and all the kind of national initiatives about reigniting the economy with green investments. But we actually don't know how much about what have changed in the SMEs. Are they still looking to make the circular transition? And in what are they needing of more funding or less funding? Do they have more time or less resources for it? So we're going to make a quick and dirty survey over the next couple of months where we ask cluster organizations around the world how to perceive this. Because one thing we learned from this crisis here is that the clusters have become even closer to the members and even better knowledge of what's going on out there. Then I think it's in September 3rd, we're going to make a workshop where clusters share knowledge on their lessons learned on circular economy in the light of COVID-19. And you're all invited to join. And then we're going to make some recommendations to cluster managers and also to policymakers on what to learn from this. And then I have my last slide, Antonio. And this is actually a new project that we are coordinating a little bit. It's about what it's what Ulla told in the beginning, that there should be a better match between green clusters and clusters working with digitalization. And this project is actually about making circular transition digital. It's led by Cap Digital, and it's just started up. So the timing of this project is amazing. I would just recommend you to check up on it, because it's some interesting stuff they're going to do. And one thing they're going to do is that they're going to make they have some. It's an InnoSub project, so they have funding for vouchers for SMEs. They're going to make some accelerator program for SMEs, and they're also going to make a network of clusters and ecosystems working with digital circular transition. So this is just a big recommendation to follow this project as well. So if you want to know more, ask me in the chat, and I'll let you know.
Thank you. Thank you. It will be wonderful to have time to comment and ask questions, but it's a lot of topics to cover today, 2-hour-long session, and I think it's better if we continue. Thank you very much, Caspar. Okay, and now we are going to hear Marisa. Are you there, Marisa? Marisa Fernandez from the cluster Sinai.
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Welcome, Marisa. So I am showing your presentation now. If I can. Here it is. Thank you, Marisa.
Okay. Thank you, Antonio. Yeah, so when the COVID-19 crisis occurs, we were in the beta project in the month 24th. So already, 2/3 of the project was already developed. So then we can see we have what we would like to introduce today is the lessons that we learned about the beta project development, how we can translate to this objective of to work in a green and collaborative recovery. Next slide, please, Antonio. Yeah, and then as Caspar mentioned, we have the clusters during our work. Now we have working every day. We work supporting the SMEs to overcome innovation barriers, and then it is very important, the innovation for this green and collaborative recovery. No, and also we facilitate the cross-sectoral collaboration to increase the resource efficiency. No, it's very relevant because we are working like more horizontal clusters, no? Like we have clean tech, water, energy, plasma cluster, nanotechnology cluster, that we can collaborate with other industrial clusters, are the tourist cluster, of the automotive cluster, or more the agro-food clusters. So this cross-sectoral collaboration is really relevant for this green recovery, to boost this green recovery. And also what we do every day, the cluster, is this cross-fertilization. So we boost the cross-fertilization between SMEs, large industries, research, startup, but also with the society, this quadruple helix. So this is a really relevant role of the cluster to boost this green and collaborative recovery. So, and the beta project is an example of working in these three activities, supporting SMEs to overcome innovation barriers, boosting this cross-sectoral collaboration, and also boosting this cross-fertilization between all the actors in the innovation ecosystems. Next slide, please, Antonio. And then what I'm going to present from the beta project is just some key facts. Also, I'm going to present the voucher schemes that we have used. We have the results that we get in the month 24, and also some examples of the SMEs that are being beneficiaries of the project. Next slide, please. And then, so the VIDA project has the objective of support resource efficiency in food value chains through innovation. It's an InnoSub project from the Horizon 2020 in the call of 2017. The project will finish in March next year. It's a cascade funding to support the innovation in SMEs, and with a budget of almost 5 million euros, 3,355,000 are just direct from SME support. And we have next slide, please. We are 10 partners from 7 countries. So we have participating 2 water clusters from Friesland in the Netherlands and Aragon in Spain. We have 2 clean tech and energy clusters from Denmark and Italy. We have also 2 food clusters from Germany and Spain. We have 2 CAT clusters, plasma technology cluster from Germany and nano technology cluster from Czech Republic, 1 research center also from the Netherlands, and 1 innovation consultancy from Portugal. This is the consortium that is participating and is developing the project. Next slide, please. And then, so next one, please, about the voucher schemes that we have used 3 voucher schemes just to boost, to support this innovations capacity of the SMEs. So the innovation support voucher was a small voucher of until 5,000 euros. Then what the SMEs could apply is just support from intellectual property, also for innovation consultancies, audit different studies that can support them in the development of the innovation capacity. Then we have the validation vouchers, when we have SMEs could apply for the support of knowledge provider to validate a technology, and then until they can get funded until 25,000 euros. And then the demonstration voucher, then here was necessary the collaboration of at least 2 SMEs. There was demonstration project with could be funding until 250,000 euros, and project for 1 year of development until 12 months of development, and then the objective as the TRL at the end of the project should be around 8, between 7 and 8. So these are the 3 voucher schemes that we develop in the VIDA project to support these innovation capacities in the SMEs. And with this objective, to support the agro-food sector to be more resource efficiency through the application of the CAT technologies as the plasma and nanotechnology, and other technologies, also efficiency in water, energy, and also digitalization. Please, next step, the next slide, and next one, please. To see the results that we get in this VIDA project, we can see that we almost spent already all the budget, and 102 SMEs has been aware with these vouchers. No, so we have 2 calls from the demonstration vouchers, and now we have around 40,000 euros left. Then we are now it's open a new call from the innovation support vouchers, the small ones that will be open until the 10th of August. So you can see more details in the VIDA website of how this about the templates and how to apply for this new call of innovation support vouchers. Next slide, please. And then we just to see some of the results of the just very quickly. You see that we have 20 SMEs that are beneficiaries for the innovation support vouchers. Next slide, please. 60 next one, please. You have also, and you see the 16 from the SMEs were beneficiaries for the validation vouchers, the one we say that was to validate a technology. And next one, please. We have 66 SMEs participating in the demonstration vouchers, and you can see more or less for which countries were the applications. We have from this project we have 90 applications, and in the two goals, and then we have almost 20 projects funded. So next slide, please. I just want to finish with some examples of the SMEs that we were beneficiaries of the VIDA project. Please, just next slide. And then one example of the innovation support voucher, the one that the small ones, 5,000 euros. Here we have this eco-innovation consultancy for the implementation of efficient systems for the control of invasive species in the irrigation community. So we have an irrigation community that it has a problem, that they have some mussels and also clams, invasive species, that they are blocking the irrigation facilities. So in this study, what they were doing is to try to analyze biocide treatment to see how they can control these invasive species. And the result of this this audit and this study, then we see that they have this environmental impact, like they can minimizing the adverse effect on the environmental and on crops. So they are establishing how they have to control with these biocides these species, and then what they are analyzing is how the amount of the biocide that they have to use to avoid the propagation and concentration of the pollutants also through the food chains, as trialomethanes, for instance. So there has a very environmental impact and also has an economic impact because with this correct use of the solution, they can save more than 75% in the current operational and management costs. This is this technological impact because there is a new way of the biocidal application in a different form that is doing normally, with a form of pools in place that continuously. So with this study, the irrigation community has a result of how to control these invasive species, reducing the environmental impact, also reducing the operational and maintenance costs, and also have a technological impact. Next slide, please. And then we have another example of what is the app validation voucher project, where in this case we have an efficient drying system as an innovation enable of high-value biorefineries. In this case, what they are doing is just so taking from the coffee, because almost 10 billion kilos of coffee has been consumed this last year, in 2019. So only 1% is the composition inside of the coffee is extracted when a coffee is brewed. So meaning of the other 99% of the bioactive compounds inside the spent coffee grounds are being treated as waste. So this company, what is trying to do is valorize the coffee ground ingredients also for food and cosmetic industry. So then again, we have a very important environmental impact, reducing the food waste against the coffee ground. This valorization of this coffee ground for other uses, and also we have a technological impact with the validation of the innovative drying system. And the next slide, please, Antonio. So, and then for yes, we have an example also that what is the demonstration voucher project with this case is a cloud irrigation platform based on remote wireless data acquisition. So what here is doing is just in real-time data from sensors and also from the weather stations that is uploaded to the cloud, and then in the cloud platform they get with this information then is given indications so to the to control the hydraulic valves from the irrigation. And with this next slide, please, Antonio, what we are doing is also saving water and energy with this and also reduce the crop diseases. So and is a very important also technological impact with the digitalization of the agricultural practice with the Internet of Things and automatization, in this case of the irrigation process. So these are just the 3 examples of projects that we are funding with the VIDA project. And just please, the last slide. So what are our recommendations from the VIDA project? What we realized during these 24 months of developing the project for boosting this green and collaborative recovery. So is very relevant, the funding cascade, because these small grants and short medium term project, maximum 12 months, are very easy for SMEs to manage, no? Especially for startup. So then it's very important from them also for the time scale of the project is very adequate for them, just to to ask for the money in 3 they are asking for this support, and in 3 months they are starting the project. And then for instance, we compare now as we are asking for a live project, for instance, now that is open the call, and we are an SME is asking for a live project today in July, that is the call, but it is not going to start working until September next year. But in this, with this cascade funding, the SMEs are asking for the money, and the time scale is very appropriate for them for develop the innovation really in a short time. And also with this sole grant that is very for them is easy to manage, especially for the startup and the small SMEs. Also, I think resilient and green is cost effective. So we see in all the solutions in the VIDA project how this environmental solution with an environmental impact has a positive economic impact. So we can prove this. Also is very important to facilitate the development of these new value chains, as is the case of the VIDA Nexus, no? With the food, the energy, the water, and the cat technologies. No? These value chains is really supporting, is facilitating this cross-fertilization, and then could lead to the development of disruptive, innovative solutions at the global level. So thank you very much. Please, last slide, Antonio, just where you can see who are the partners in the VIDA project. And thank you very much.
You are very, very welcome, Marisa. Congratulations for the project. Now we are going to hear the presentation of Pierre Gaudillat. Bonjour, Pierre, are you there? Pierre? Are you there? Can you hear me? I cannot hear you. Sorry. Pierre Gaudillat, I see that you are in the, but your microphone is off. is I can try to activate it, I think. No. Pierre, can you speak now? No. Your microphone is off. Stay activated. Could you activate your microphone? Pierre, we cannot hear you. Sorry, but we are not hearing you, Pierre. This is pretty. Yes, now, welcome, Pierre.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes,
I dialed in on the phone because it wasn't working.
Okay, perfect.
Is the sound okay?
So, yes, it's good enough, I think.
Okay.
So now I'm sharing your screen. I hope your presentation. Yes, here it is. So welcome, floor is yours.
Sorry, now I cannot hear you.
We are hearing you.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks a lot, Antonio. Okay, so I'll get going. Yeah, thanks very much for having me this morning and for organizing the seminar. So yeah, I'll say a few words about well, our role in EREC and also how we see the circular economy helping European companies not only go green but also save resources, make benefits, and also how a more local approach to their value chain can help them achieve those objectives. So just a couple of words about the Joint Research Center. We're basically the internal science and technology consultants within the European Commission, and we're supporting DG GROW on the cluster collaboration platform and the revamping of the EREC initiative that Ocean mentioned earlier. So I'll say a few words about that as well. Next slide, please, Antonio. Right, so just maybe a few figures. The EU has fostered for many years now a greener approach to the economy, and what we can see over the past years is that this has really paid off because the environmental sectors in the economy actually grow faster than their counterparts in more conventional activities. So the green growth approach has quite a lot to deliver, but this extends also beyond the companies that are focused only on environmental solutions, and the resource efficiency approaches can also deliver benefits for any kind of organization, including the low-hanging fruits like lower energy costs, but also lower material costs and more stable supplies of materials, lower costs of waste disposal, reliability in the supply chain and the entire value chain, an improvement in the brand image of the companies, and also better preparedness for the future, especially in terms of compliance with forthcoming environmental regulation. I'll switch to the next slide, please, which is the core of the point I wanted to make today, which is that the circular economy and a more local approach to value chains are actually interconnected. So the supply chain, manufacturing, and waste, and obviously beyond, if we consider a more circular economy, are very interconnected. So if we look at the dominant model of the past couple of decades, which is on the left here, focus more on globalized value chains and offshoring of production in the case of many companies, especially in Europe. The production is outsourced, so a lot of the products have to be imported, from Asia and elsewhere, typically on large container ships. This also creates an opportunity because the reverse logistics of those imports make it quite cheap to export the waste as well. So then all the waste and byproducts are actually exported back to the manufacturing countries which are not in the EU. And as a result, we have fairly low capabilities for recycling at home. This in turn makes it quite difficult to source secondary raw materials in the local market, and finding supplies and especially materials for manufacturing at home becomes increasingly complicated. So that's how the circle loops, and that also encourages outsourcing production, because if we're going to source the materials abroad and manufacturing costs are cheaper, then it makes sense to have the whole process going on abroad. Now, the problem with that is, as we saw recently, next slide please, is that these supply chains are fragile, because COVID is just one example. But if you have a global pandemic, if you have a disruption of the supply chains, then this beautiful plan just falls apart. You have not only supply chain disruptions, but you can also have other sorts of shocks in the value chain. So, for instance, if you have tariffs imposed because some countries are waging a trade war between themselves, and even on the at the end of the cycle, at the end of the loop, on the waste bit, what we saw even before COVID, a couple of years ago, China decided that they would no longer accept lower grade materials for recycling, in particular plastics, in particular paper as well, and so they just basically closed their borders. So a lot of the European companies that used to export their waste to China for being recycled, instead of being paid for their waste and their byproducts, they suddenly found themselves having to pay for that waste to be recycled properly. And that's the sort of shock that will become increasingly common, and against which we have to build more resilience. So that's why a more localized model, which is the one pictured on the right, makes a lot of sense in all dimensions, actually. If we have reshoring of production, now, of course, it doesn't mean that it's an absolute, it will still make sense to make some things abroad and to import them. But for many items and many parts of the value chain, reshoring actually builds in a lot of resilience, and actually in the longer term, we think can lower costs. We have shorter logistical loops. The waste can be produced locally, and this increases also the demand for local recycling and other forms of waste processing, ideally before the products even become waste. There is materials available in the local economy from secondary raw materials, but also primary raw materials, because there's an ecosystem built around that, and that increases the reliability of the supply chain. Next slide, please. So what we see is that having both a more circular and a more local supply chain is beneficial, not just from the company's perspective individually, but also what we're concerned about at the EU level for the environment and for the EU economy. For the company, it makes it more resilient and easy to source materials in particular, easy to manage waste and be compliant now and in the future, and easier also to have a closer control of their suppliers and the whole value chain. And for the environment, it actually reduces emissions in general, so greenhouse gases, but also pollutant emissions globally, which is ultimately what's important. And also it avoids the offshoring of emissions, where actually the products are manufactured in more energy intensive and more pollution intensive areas and then imported back into the EU. So we see this as a very strong opportunity to maintain value in the EU and foster green growth and jobs, not just in the sectors that are directly working on environmental solutions and the circular economy, like recycling and remanufacturing, but let's say the manufacturing industries in general, and even beyond that, the third sector as well will be impacted positively. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide, please, to an example of this relocalization and circularity happening in practice, which is industrial symbiosis. That's, let's say, the textbook example of what a local and circular economy initiative looks like. Just taking a system, an ecosystem approach, whereby the waste or byproducts from one company or one process are reused by another one. Usually it works better at the very local level because for things like heat or bulky materials or low value materials, it only makes sense if that synergy is actually exploited at the local level, because it wouldn't really make sense to transport these flows over large distances. So the example on the right is from Kalundborg in Denmark. It's actually an example of industrial symbiosis that's been around for many decades, even probably before the term was coined. And this diagram, I'm not sure you can read it on the screen, but it just illustrates all the material flows and also the energy and water flows that run between the different companies in that industrial area, and how they take advantage of each other's byproducts constructively. So we think that's particularly relevant also for clusters, because well, their key activity is geared towards supporting companies at the local level, and they can be ideal brokers in developing partnerships for industrial symbiosis as well. Next slide, please. So to wrap up, and I think we'll hear more in a minute from Jan Martin on ERIC and the ECCP, but our role as a joint research center will be to support the development of the technical content, as Ocean also mentioned, and we are now redeveloping the resources that we're offering to companies as part of the ECCP to provide resource efficiency and circular economy content that will be more tailored to the audiences of the cluster collaboration platform and ERIC. So with specific solutions on how to implement resource efficiency and circular economy in practice. The knowledge database is being refurbished with a central approach based on green best practice and case studies from real companies. We will be in charge of validating the content and publishing it, and we're also considering if there is some interest following the presentation today, for instance, and other contacts with stakeholders, a specific toolkit for industrial symbiosis, because we think that there's huge potential in that and in developing this idea more broadly. So now is the time to engage and to contribute if you have some ideas and feedback, because now is when we are redeveloping this content of the ERIC.
Hello, sorry, we are not hearing you now. Sorry, I have stopped hearing you. Hello? No. Somebody can hear me? Just to verify that.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So it's a problem in the other side. Pierre, can you hear me? Okay, I think that I hope Pierre is able to join us again. Pierre, are you there? Again? No, since that Pierre has left us. So we will continue. He was closing, I think, very. Yes, now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Antonio. I was just concluding. So, yeah, just put in this slide. It was just a wrap up. So I just wanted to emphasize the opportunity that the circular economy and resource efficiency represent for EU businesses, and that recent events in the world economy and supply chain shocks point to the benefits of having a more circular and local value chain. And yeah, my last message was we're developing the new ERIC as part of the ECCP. So we'd love to hear some feedback from the participants on what they'd like to see in useful content.
Thank you. Could you just say a quick word about the difference between the ERIC and the RMIS, please?
Yeah, so the RMIS is the raw materials information system. So that's actually a database developed by colleagues from the JRC also, basically on detailed data on specific value chains for individual materials. That's actually very helpful in analyzing
We can't hear
supply
you.
chains and value chains.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
You have
Maybe I'll respond in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Pierre.
Yeah.
You have a specific presentation on that tool on raw materials from the GRC on our website in the article of the ECCP where we have the list of our video conference session, and there were just one session specific for that tool. So I would recommend you to see it. Okay. But anyway,
yeah,
Pierre.
My colleague Constantin, I think, came to present a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so, but in a nutshell, the RMIS is about raw materials value chains, and ERIC is about circular economy and resource efficiency support, basically with best practices and concrete examples of how to implement these solutions in a business.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. Something else, Pierre, from your side?
That's it from me. Thank you. Sorry about the audio problems.
You are very welcome. We have been able to hear you. Okay, so now we are going to jump to the next presentation. Okay, it will be done by I will show you again by Jean-Martin Devet from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform and Ecoris. Jan, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me? And I also put on the camera. Thank you.
You are very welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure to be here. Antonia, if you could put on the latest presentation that I sent to you this morning.
Yes,
and then perhaps I can start with a very small anecdote. We all have our anecdotes in this crazy period that is fortunately, hopefully, somewhat behind us. My anecdote is that I moved in the time of Corona. And when I moved, and as that happens, you often have a lot of possessions that you want to get rid of. So I went to the container park many times and was shocked. I was shocked to see that the recycling center was closed. So many possessions that I wanted to recycle actually were not recyclable at that moment. And I think it's very good news that now that we are a little bit down the line, that indeed we are somehow finding a way to connect the green wave with the digital wave, with a post-COVID wave. So working towards a green, digital, and a resilient recovery, I think that's fantastic. So many thanks for the opportunity. My name is Jan Maarten de Vet. I'm heading the new ECCP consortium, but do not be afraid because the new ECCP consortium consists of many established players. So we have fresh providers and we will not move houses. We will, as Pierre said a moment ago, renovate or at least build on the foundations, and we will also break some walls. And that is what I would like to do in this presentation. I'm aware of the time limits, so I go through the presentation quickly, and there are 3 parts. The first is a recap of the fantastic things that have been done in the last 5 years by other people than me on the ECCP. So here you can see indeed, this is a platform not only for industry clusters, but also by, and that makes the ECCP so unique. Next slide, please. The ECCP has already 1,132 clusters which are registered, and also a growing number of cluster associations and networks that are part of this, as well as a lot of other statistics that I'm not going to bother you with. Again, the presentation will be found afterwards on this website. But I think what is very important, if you go to the next slide, to see that actually it's not only about the clusters, but it is about the companies, the SMEs behind the clusters. And it was found already in a survey last year that not less than 20% of the SMEs that are working in a cluster are actually making use of the ECCP services. So that's very, very important. And that is also, I think, very important for today's discussion, and also in the renovation and in the rebuilding and the further building project that we talk about. Next slide, please. Also very important, as you know, the ECCP is home of European cluster partnerships. So a tremendous amount of effort has been put in international corporations, 49 partnerships already, but also very, very relevant to the discussion today, the smart specialization investments, the excellence, and of course, the innovation, InnoSep, and other initiatives. We also heard Horizon 2020, we also heard Interreg initiatives also today. So all of those are, let's say, covered by the ECCP umbrella. Next slide, please. Very important also in the period to come is that indeed the profiles, and many of you have uploaded your profiles, have been very carefully and are very carefully being validated. So it's not only about the numbers of clusters, it's also about the quality of the exchange within this vibrant community. And that is, of course, very important, and that will also be continued to be secured in the period to come. The newsletters, we moved from a weekly digest to a monthly digest. We received them last month, 6,000 subscribers, and also larger numbers of visitors to the website over the years, including, of course, the coverage on social media. Okay, so that's a little bit of a promotion, just as a recap, not for myself, but a tribute to the incredible work that was done. Next slide, very important to also remind you of the fact that there are many webinars and events ongoing, like the one today, and also indeed, very good collaboration with European Cluster Alliance. But also I want to point out that already this week there's a webinar on digital challenges for cluster networks and associations. And next week there is a webinar on how to learn to communicate effectively about your cluster. And last but not least, yes, there will be the European Cluster Conference under the German presidency on the 10th and 11th of November, and that will be a partly virtual, a partly live event, a hybrid event, as we are working towards these days. Okay, so after those recap words, let's talk about the combination of ECCP and ERAC. Next slide, please. So why those two to marry? And I think you heard already in the presentations from previous speakers, notably from the Joint Research Center from Pierre, but also by Caspar Nielsen's presentation from Cluster Excellence Denmark, that there are very important reasons why these things need to marry. I would say the most important message is that the greening of the economy is too important to leave it only to the green players. So greening is going to affect everybody and every business model. And this is now becoming more and more clear. So there is a need to mainstream the green networks, including the European Resource Efficiency Knowledge Center, which will become a network with mainstream activities. And let me tell a little bit more on what our vision is on that merger on which we are currently working. Next slide, please. So what's the point? So ERIC will be integrated in the ECCP environment, and it will help boost the green recovery of European industry in a larger way. And clusters, as we heard already, can be instrumental in advancing businesses to make the green transformation. But not to forget also the original justification of ERIC to sell environmental technologies and services to now a much larger public through the renovated knowledge center that indeed the JRC is building at the moment. So greater information for resource efficiency, both within ERIC and within the ECCP. The next slide is the most important slide of the presentation. I would like to spend 1 minute about it. So there are, in our view, 3 value propositions. So why is it good and what is there to gain from the various actors? Well, first of all, a word to the wonderful ERIC community. The advantage for the ERIC community is that it's possible now to raise awareness and to make use of clusters as agents of resource efficiency. And as we all know, cluster managers are excellent brokers, so they can really play a role in helping to sell your products and services to a much larger group of SMEs, as has been in the past. So, of course, there is a broader range of services also to tap in, also for the ERIC community. But why then is it important for the cluster managers to actually engage with ERIC? Well, it's very simple. We all need to work towards a circular economy. We can no longer isolate the green clusters from other clusters. Everybody needs to go into this direction. And we heard many times this morning already, it's all about rethinking our value chains. It's about promoting industrial symbiosis, and it's about figuring out ways to do that. And that requires the expertise, the knowledge that is also available within the ERIC community. So cluster managers, of course, must be equipped with knowledge on how to do this. And that, again, is something that ERIC can help with. And last but not least, we should not forget the policymakers. Policymakers are very important to engage with. And here, particularly, it's good to think about regional and local policymakers. Many of them have, over the last few years, built up circular economy action plans and strategies. And it's very important to see how these policymakers can actually make use of the insights, the knowledge that has been created, both within ERIC and also within the cluster community. In other words, let's not forget about both ERIC and cluster managers in driving forward the circular economy. Next slide, please. So what will happen next? So we are working on the further breaking the walls between ERIC and the ECCP. And we're working on the renovation of the ECCP house, including, of course, the necessary changes, such as, next slide, a new website. Okay, this is important to make this point as well. Obviously, the new ECCP will be about clusters. It will be about connectivity, but it will be above all about the community. It's about capacity building and collaboration, as it has been in the past already. And very important, the new ECCP will really cater towards 8 different target groups. It will focus, of course, on their cluster organizations, as it has done over the years, but also, more importantly, focus on the SMEs behind it, the members of the cluster organizations. And of course, also the European cluster partnerships and initiatives the national associations of clusters, as represented here, many are around the table today, meta clusters and networks, but also the training providers, the public and the policy and public institutions, and again, last but not least, the resource efficiency support actors, including ERIC. So these 8 target groups will be carefully monitored and worked toward and communicated with in the time to come. So how are we going to do this? Well, of course, next slide. We are working on a new website. We hope to launch the website soon. It's a lot of work, and it's going to be very exciting, and we'll keep you very closely informed on when and how that website is coming up. But there will be also upgraded knowledge sharing, and there will be more possibilities for exchange, cluster exchange, matchmaking, and more possibilities for interactions. And of course, all of that will be within the policy priorities as they have been outlined by the new Commission priorities, the Green Deal, also the social economy, not to forget the digitalization, and of course, the need for post-COVID resilience. And as mentioned already, the ambition is to break some silos, to break some walls, and therefore to move from the European Resource Efficiency Knowledge Center to a network, an open network, which is reaching out to the world. So that's a lot of things to work on. I would say thank you very much. There's, I think, one more slide to come. That is indeed a signal to the many cluster representatives and other interested here in the table. It's very important. We can only do this job. We can only support you if indeed, you also do your bit as you have done it in the past. So you will be asked in the short time to regularly update your profile, to also have some extended functionalities that allow for more services. And please continue to upload your articles, news, and share your achievements as has been done indeed over the last years. For instance, on the newsletters, very much driven by the content. 2/3 of the content in the newsletters is coming from the cluster community itself. So that's a lot of things to work on. I'm aware of time. So thank you so much for your time, and look tremendously forward to working with you. Of course, with the Commission who's so active in driving this forward, I think that's really a word of thank as well. Eka, thank you for hosting, and the 2 communities, and many more to come. So looking forward, and thank you for the opportunity.
You are very welcome, Jan, and I want to repeat that we have a very close collaboration with the ECCP, and we are glad to have this strong linkage with you. Thank you, and I would like to ask Eva. Eva, should we proceed to Ismo, or would you prefer to jump to Patrick and let Ismo present to close?
Let's see. I think that let's see if Ismo can talk. Ismo, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, Ismo.
Hola, Eva. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Buenos días. Ismo, okay, so we have a short version of the presentation of the European Green Deal. Up to you, Antonio, but Ismo is now well connected. Maybe we can go to the Green Deal.
Okay, I am now sharing the presentation. I hope, because PowerPoint is giving me some strange errors, but I hope now it's working. Yes, Ismo, welcome. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and sorry for this delay and the fact that I need to use my phone. I was trying desperately on Friday and this morning connect from my Commission laptop, but it's simply just not possible. So I will fast fly over the EU Green Deal, and then I understand my colleague Kasia, also from DG Climate, is online. So Kasia, as you suggested, you could then say a few words of the Climate Pact, which is at the end of this presentation. Now, 2 caveats to this presentation. One is that this is a little bit outdated in the sense that this dates back to March before the corona crisis started, and we haven't yet been able to update all the elements with the next to be in line with the next generation communication that the Commission submitted a couple of weeks ago. That's one thing. And the second thing is that we do have a draft version, excuse me, we do have a draft version of this narrative for the recovery phase, but that is still a draft. So I can't make, unfortunately, any comments at this point of time in what comes to the recovery. But some general principles of the Green Deal. If you go to the slide number 2 in the presentation, that is already showing some of the key elements that are very close to our thinking, and this is the heart of the Commission proposal, namely that in our proposal for the Green Deal, that will include more than 40 different reviews and legal propositions for regulations or directives. We are aiming to have a deeply transformative context. So the idea is to transform the EU policies pretty much fundamentally, to integrate the sustainability to the EU policies, and this should be done in introducing climate policies that are not leaving anybody behind, and ensuring that the transition to the low carbon and sustainable future is a just one. So this is the just transition concept. We do have several details about the different legislations and what we are aiming for, but I'm jumping directly to the next slide, which is slide number 3 in your presentation. So this is basically just to give you an idea what we are doing in numerical terms. So we will be increasing the EU's ambition by 2030. You have seen the famous headline target going to -50, -55. The Commission colleagues are currently drafting an impact assessment for that. We are aiming as the EU for climate neutrality by 2050. We are putting a great emphasis on very limited, on related areas, such as what is the meaning and what are the possible gains of mobilizing the industry to work closely with us on circular economy. How much can be achieved in the resource efficiency? The further integration and efficiency of the European energy market. The mobility issues, not only the green transport, electric vehicles, but everything that is related to sustainable and smart mobility, including also digitalization. There's the agriculture sector with the concept of farm to fork that is being now developed. We have the biodiversity, which is in many regards a second big leg of the whole Green Deal communication, in addition to the climate change. And we have the toxic issue at the zero pollution principle. These are the big elements of the EU Green Deal. And I've seen in some of the presentations that there is much developed thinking in the EU in these areas, and I'm not pretending to be an expert in any of these at the same detail as you are. But I think that the headline message here is that the EU policies, as they're being developed and as they are being unrolled and implemented, they will create several business opportunities for anything from medium to long term up to 2050 in all these key areas of the Green Deal. Moving to next, please. A couple of words about investment, and this is again based on non-updated version, but just to highlight that we are also developing the financial instruments. There is the Just Transition Fund. That size is now being considered to be increased. We have a substantial role reserved for the Invest EU, We are developing a legislation that we hope will be conducive for climate and green investments. So this is the whole concept of sustainable finance and taxonomy. We are developing EU green bonds and so on and so forth. And we hope that the Commission proposal for the EU's budget next mainstreaming headline figure will be increased. It was 20% in the previous MFF, and now for 21 to 27, the Commission has suggested it to be 25. So this is concerning the EU budget, which will then be used for all kinds of finance and financial instruments in the member states. Moving to next. We haven't forgotten research either, and again, the Commission has suggested there to be a substantial increase to different research funding, and also clearly defining the so-called Green Deal missions, where we would be focusing on climate, oceans, cities, and soil. We also are, as written there, we are also putting some emphasis on digital infrastructure that is part of the digitalization and bigger industrial revolution that is behind the corner. Moving to next. So to wrap up this part of the presentation, it is in our proposal to align all the new Commission initiatives to be compliant with the Green Deal objectives, and to invite all the stakeholders to be part of this process. And we also hope that the better regulation will further enhance sustainability and address also those bottlenecks, such as, for example, in the innovation process. Kasia, can I hand over to you for a quick word on the Climate Pact?
Yeah, absolutely. So although we are seeing the European climate law as a slide, I wanted to say something about the Climate Pact. And the Climate Pact is a kind of bridge between the stakeholders and all the citizens, and the delivery of the Green Deal, and the delivery of the climate law. So the Climate Pact has been announced, or the public consultation on the Climate Pact has been announced at the same time as the European climate law. Why? Because the idea is to make sure that we give everyone a voice and a space to design climate actions. The aim is to really share information. So all the great practices that you have described, I have listened to your presentations a little bit, and I also know clusters, because actually 3 months I've been in Klima. I come from DG Grow. I was dealing with startups and SME policy, and clusters are an amazing example of how you can do things in practice. So I really just wanted to flag to you that apart from the regulatory and the industrial side of the Green Deal, you know, the hardcore serious stuff, there is even more serious part where we want to aim to make the Green Deal objectives everybody's business, because everybody has a role to play. As in the previous presentation, it was said that we shouldn't be distinguishing between the green clusters and non-green clusters. It's the same with everything. So the Climate Pact is about sharing good practice, identifying good practice, listening to citizens. We're planning wide consultations in a form of citizen dialogues, and we are looking for ways how we can support the amazing array of things already going on and initiatives where we can scale them up, and where there is still space for new initiatives. So while the Climate Pact in its kind of first wave of actions is probably more directed at citizens and activists and all these people, you know, running on air and energy, their own energy and enthusiasm. There is definitely also space for the industry and for pledges. And I know that pledges is not a new thing, but in this case, it's about pledges that can really accelerate the transitions that we're talking about. So,
sorry, there is somebody with the sound activated. Please put your sound off. Hello, there is somebody making.
Pero yo le envié a la comisión, no al grupo, ¿no? Pero yo no tengo todos los correos.
Okay, I think now it's sorry.
No worries. It happens in the online world as well. So yes, thank you. So just sort of last words. Although the public consultation has ended on the 17th of June, it's still possible to send in position papers for a week or so. If, as clusters initiatives, you would like to say something important to us, and I know you have so much to share and offer, please feel free to either send them to the functional mailbox you see there, or even directly to me. Eva knows where to find me. Because, you know, really coming from the business world and the SME side, I know that through clusters, we could really find good practices and good processes to share with others, so that if anybody wants to, you know, enter the green world, they don't have to reinvent the wheel, but they can learn from you. Thank you very much.
No, you are very welcome, Katarzyna, and we will encourage our members to participate for sure. Thank you to you. Okay, perfect. So we have now time to welcome Patrick, the last speaker for today, Patrick Villarmos from Plastipolis. Patrick, are you there?
Yes, good morning,
Patrick?
everyone. Yes, good morning.
Welcome. So now Patrick will share with us our position, the position of the European Cluster Alliance. So just one moment, Patrick. I'm going to present now, I hope. Sorry, because this is a little too much for my PowerPoint.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Antonio. Thank you. Yes, we are running out of time, so I will be short and really first thank all the different presentation for setting the scene and giving us and all the cluster very valuable information at the time being. I will give our experience as Plastipolis. We are among the European cluster, among the more than 1,000 clusters that was mentioned earlier. We are member of France Cluster and AFPC in France that are very active in ECA. And as a material driven and clusters devoted to plastics and other polymers, we are very much engaged into circular economy and green transformation for a long time. Really part of our roadmap, and the situation after the crisis is very, as it has been already said by the European Commission, by the GRC, is really the time to move forward into this transformation. The next slide, Antonio, please. We have been with our colleagues and very much pleased that in the beginning ECA took let's say the lead to show the value of cluster during this tough time for all the society and the industry, and we had a lot of testimonies during the daily session from March, and I think all the cluster, as we are, have done let's say the same kind of action. First, sharing information to toward SMEs. We have seen that there are more than 150,000 SMEs in cluster in Europe. So this is really a core of our action, and especially with regard to financial situation and all the different instruments at regional, national, and European level to be active. And I think we had many examples the last weeks on some emergency solution to identify products and equipment, and of course to share it between our colleagues, and the platform, ECA platform, have been very helpful and valuable for this. And moving to what's the next step, and we are hopefully in the next step we are not yet in the post-crisis, but we have to organize ourselves for the coming months. And so next slide, please. Yes, we are definitely in this phase, and this meeting is very helpful and very gave us very detailed information on it. It's fully relevant with all the way the ECA and the cluster session, and I've been working in the last months to review the needs, to define and to identify solution, and to move to action. Implementation. We had and the past weeks, we had a lot of review of description and in the different value chain, and to see what at short term, but maybe long term perspective, to organize the different transformation. And today, clearly, the Green Deal and all the recovery package of the European Commission for cluster are very much expected to implement this idea and action. The next slide, Antonio, please. So cluster are never alone. Cluster, as you know, ecosystem. It's a triple helix, quadruple helix. We are working with companies, institutions, policymakers, academia, research institutes. So this is clearly our, let's say core model, and we are definitely let's say connected to and this is part of our challenges to cross-link different partners. And at European level, we are for each of us, each individual cluster, as well as a cluster association, or working to, of course, closely with the European Cluster Collaboration Platform for years. And we are very pleased to see the evolution with the merger and the wedding with EREC in the next weeks, to have an updated tool and partners. But we also, according to our activities, we are connected to RTOs, and they are at regional, national, European level, and research and technology organization are key for us. Development agencies, we have seen earlier example, but among also the key partner for cluster, and I think it has to be emphasized now, is the region. And the region are definitely a major partner for the recovery, for the green transformation, and for all the challenges of the economy. Each of the cluster are connected to one or several regions. We are very much involved in smart specialization activities, and this is in the next steps. It has to be also very much fostered and developed as a major say connection, and also to develop a cross-link between regions. We have. I will just have to conclude one example after, but this is something really of high importance. The last key partner, but it's not a definitive and exhaustive list, are private and public-private partnerships, and that are at European level organized with the different platform, and most of our cluster are connected to one or several PPP. For us, it's Spire, Manufacture, the tooling platform, and others. IT platform, and this is in the coming weeks and months. It is also a point to foster and to expand, and what not mentioned also as a very key partner for clusters or KIC, knowledge innovation communities, that are also a frame where to bridge industry and research and competencies. So this is also a strong aspect of a cluster, let's say, partnership. So this is our conviction, but I think we are very pleased for all what has been said before, that cluster can really be actors, players, agents for the challenges mentioned by the Commission: global competitiveness, digital and green transformation. So one word to show an example, that we have the example of InnoSup last week. We have, for the next slide, please. Yes, we had also VIDA example this morning. InnoSup as an instrument was of very high interest with the cascade funding model to reach the SMEs. We have seen other aspects. I took this example, and it's very much in line with what has been proposed and presented by GRC and Pierre Godilla earlier, to rethink and to rebuild, let's say, value chain from globalization, let's say globalization or former globalization to let's say more local and driven value chain. And for this, we can we have this example of Symbiosis pilot or case in I think in Denmark. The case that it shows here is part of a Horizon 2020 ICT program we are involved with. It's managed by Politecnico Milano with more than 20 companies to take benefit of digitalization and digital platform to redesign value chain and supply chain for different industry. And this project has been organized and went through cooperation, let's say regional cooperation within the Vanguard network. We are part of it, and from this we are at the time being working on this approach to, and that is also of high relevance with regard to the current situation, to rethink value chain and business model for companies. So this is an example, but there are many. So thank you, and thank you for listening, and looking forward to move to the next steps. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you to you, Patrick. Merci beaucoup. And it has been a very, very interesting session. We have surpassed our timing. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, for sharing your knowledge, expertise, your initiatives with us. And we continue collaborating, because that's the key. That's what Europe needs. And we want to repeat, you are invited to join us every morning at 8:30. We have a list of sessions for the coming days. Especially, I would like to invite you to join us in one special session with the Commissioner Thierry Breton, the next Tuesday 30 at 3 p.m. Central European Time. It will be very important for us, and I am very, very, very optimistic on the results of our presentation to the Commissioner of what cluster can do for the future of Europe. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Antonio. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.